Hello students. We did a lot of work this semester. We did a lot of accomplishments, alhamdulillah. We are just going to pass by and see the main units that we studied or went through. We started with Unit 1, which was 2 is better than 1. Unit 2, which was rags to riches. Unit 3, what will they think of next? Unit 4, the world of TV. Unit 5, do you really need it? And Unit 6, the gender divide. Now, there were a lot of things that we discussed within these units. We had the grammar, we had the vocab, and of course there were a lot of enjoyable topics and things that we passed by and studied throughout the unit. We're going to just go back to Unit 1 and see what we have in 2 is better than 1. Now, do you remember when we talked about teamwork in general? And within the teamwork topic, we had this topic, which was the difficulties that students face when they are on their own. And this is when we met the two guys here. Now we have Adnan and Badr, who teamed up to help each other while studying in New York. While they were teaming up, they did a lot of negotiating to just divide the housework between them. And here, these are the phrases that we passed by. Now, we have, for example, how about if I, for example, clean the bathrooms and you do the laundry? I think it would be fair if we divided the dishes between us. I'm sure we can work this out. Okay, I'll agree to wash the dishes if you will, for example, clean the rooms or the bedrooms. And we have here, would you be willing to do the laundry if I wash the bathrooms every day, for example? Now, these were all negotiating phrases that we passed by. And also we had here, of course, these are the phrases that we had. And after that, we had the real talk part. Now, the first one, on the same wavelength, we said that this is a phrase that we can use when we want to show that we are on the same length, the wavelength, like here, the wave that we have here, which means thinking the same thing. We are agreeing on the same thing. No sweat is very common and easy to use, which means no problem. Not my cup of tea. We said this is a polite way to say that you do not like something. And from here, the real talk part or the conversation that we had here, we moved to the reading part, which was about these animals. And we talked about animal partners, or there was another expression which was called the symbiotic teamwork. Now, symbiotic teamwork, this expression that we use even in our projects that we did. Now, here, this was a topic that explained how naturally there is a kind of teamwork between these animals. And back to the human world, we were asked to think about your relationship with a good friend and what can you offer to each other based on symbiotic teamwork. Now, this was the writing part. After that, also, do you remember the question? Do you think it is necessary for people to share the same characteristics in order to get along well with each other? And here, if you can remember, we did the graph, which is the Venn diagram, first in the book between grandmother and grandfather. And then we had the assignment that we had to do, which was to compare between two friends. Of course, we have here the differences, and in the middle there were the similarities. Now, this part is what we had for the writing. And of course, at the end, we had to use the Venn diagram here to write a descriptive essay about people's qualities and characteristics. So this was the first essay that we wrote. Moving on to the second unit, which was Rags to Riches. Now, Rags to Riches was an interesting unit that we met a lot of real characters who were poor and then they became wealthy or rich and of course very famous for the accomplishments or the achievements that they did. And within this unit, we discussed the conversation part, which was between Ahmed and Ibrahim. Now Ahmed here, he was given quite an amount of money here. He was given 30,000 riyals as a graduation gift from his parents. Now Ahmed, he was thinking all the time what to do with the money. And here the conversation between him and Ibrahim was discussing options. Now these are the phrases that they used while discussing the options of how to spend the money. Now at the same time, so for example, he can save money, and at the same time he can spend it in a vacation. Of course he's thinking about saving the money, but then again he has the money as a gift, why not spend it? I could always, so Ahmed, he was thinking, I could always just put the money aside until I need it. Of course, we have here an option. On the other hand, there is another option. The alternative would be always to save money and not spend it on anything. And what would you think about buying a car, for example? So these are all phrases that can be used for discussion. And actually Ahmed here, because he was thinking all the time, he drove people crazy. And here he drove Ibrahim crazy. And he said, Ibrahim, now this is why I see now why you're driving people crazy. Here also there is another one, which is a question. Would you mind getting that amount of cash? Now the question here actually has two phrases which are for real talk. Would you mind and getting that amount of cash? Also, cash is a word that we use for, or an expression to use to talk about money. Also, from the real talk part that we have here goes around in circles, means that he's thinking all the time and he cannot decide what he wants. So it's just like going around in circles. Also, there is another one, he gets cold feet whenever he thinks about something he cannot decide because he gets scared or afraid. Do you remember this one? And then there was the last one, which was a question also that we had here. Would you put your money aside for a rainy day? So we discussed it. That doesn't mean just to wait until it really rains, but as an expression to say that you put your money aside until you need it. And after the conversation that we had here, we went to the reading part, which we before had the discussion about a lot of famous figures like Steve Jobs or Amancio Ortega or Mohammed Abdul-Latif Jamil. No, these are characters that we discussed first. And then in the reading part, we had Sheikh Salman al-Rajhi. Now, Sheikh Salman al-Rajhi here, he was famous for a lot of things that he did. And we studied the parts, and we studied a lot of vocabulary within the reading part. Also in the writing, we were asked to write about a figure here. So there was another kind of essay, which was a descriptive essay about a person's life. So actually we wrote two types of essays: the descriptive essay for or about people's qualities and characteristics. Then the other type, which is also a descriptive essay, but about a people or a person's life in general. And we chose a lot of interesting figures that we wrote about. Moving on to Unit 3. Now from the font that you can see in front of you, it's something that it gives an impression for something related to the future. And from the title here, we have here, what will they think of next? What will they think of next? We passed by this grandmother and her grandson. Now the grandson is Edward. He had a conversation with his grandmother. Do you remember when we talked about a lot of things that changed from one time to another, like the newspapers, like books? Here, Edward, he was trying to convince his grandmother or persuade his grandmother to try something new. So she was sticking to her book, the ordinary book, or the typical type of book that we know. And he was trying to persuade her to try the e-book. So here, these are the expressions that he used. I am sure if you just give it a try, you will find that e-books are actually easier to deal with. look at it this way, and then he showed his opinion. One of the advantages of ebooks is that you can open it anywhere. One reason you should consider reading ebooks is that they are lighter to carry. Why not? Trust me on this. And what's great about this is, and he shows his point of view. So he was trying to persuade her to try something new. And also here in their conversation, they had a lot of expressions from real talk expressions that they used. Now, what did Edward want Grandma to try? He wants her to ditch the book. Do you remember the word ditch here? And she has been lugging around all weekend. So we have here the word lugging is also mentioned here, which means that you are carrying something very heavy. More phrases that we took, real talk phrases. He wants her to check out ebook readers, to just see something new and decide if it is good or bad. And also he wants her to go with the flow. He wants her to go with the flow, which means that to go with everyone who is trying this thing. Also we have here at the end, he tried to persuade her, but she thinks it is all just a lot of hoopla. And we said that there is a meaning for hoopla here, which means that you are giving something more than it actually deserves. So these are the parts that we took in the conversation. Also, one of the characters that we met in Unit 3 was Mr. Mooney here. Now, Mr. Mooney, he gave us an idea about the future where? In space. So we had the reading part, which was space tourism. And from space tourism, we moved to the Earth back again, and we went back to our personal or our own vision, which is 2030. Now, there are a lot of projects that we discussed and that they are related to the vision here. In our essays, we're asked to write about the one project, not everything, but one project that personally you are attracted to and you find that you can contribute in or are interested in general. So we have here, besides the descriptive essays that we discussed in Unit 1 and Unit 2, we have now the personal essay, which expresses your views. So this is a personal essay just to talk about what do you think or what is your point of view. And from this point, we moved to Unit 4, which was the world of TV. And here we discussed a lot of interesting things. We had movies, films, we had a lot of things that we can watch on TV, shows, interviews, commercials, documentaries. Now, from the things that we had on the world of TV was sports. And there was actually a question, would you like to watch a sport in general alone, or would you like to watch it with someone else? And if you are watching it with someone else, means that there is a kind of discussion like the discussion that here Fahad and Adil had while they were watching the basketball match. So when they were watching, one liked the game and the other one didn't, he wasn't very satisfied with it. So we have here, there was a kind of agreeing and disagreeing part. And we took in the conversation some phrases. We have here the agreeing phrases, I agree completely, I couldn't agree more, you're absolutely right, you're right about that. And the disagreeing part, I'm sorry, but I don't agree. And you can complete and say, I don't agree with you. Or you can say, I don't agree. You can also say, I see it differently, I totally disagree. I'm afraid, I don't really agree, or you can just say, I don't really agree. I'm not so sure about that, and you must be joking, which we agreed that it is something that is used, we have here, an informal way, and it's not very polite, unless you are talking to a friend. So we have here, these are the phrases that we passed by, and we have also the real talk phrases. Now here, do you remember when we did this part? Now we have here just, hard to swallow, a dime a dozen, and doze off. Now one of these meanings is not easy to believe. Do you remember Which one was it? We have here, not easy to believe was hard to swallow, yes. And also we have here something that is so common that it doesn't have value. It's not worth anything. So here we have here, it's going to be a dime a dozen. And another way to say very or really can be just. And doze off here, when you are very bored, when you are watching something, you can fall asleep. So we have here, doze off means fall asleep. Now, this is just one part that we took in the world of TV. Another thing that we took in the reading part, which was the formula behind detective stories on TV. Now, we talked about detective stories, and this was just an introduction to what we had in general when we talked about movie genres. Do you remember the word genre? Now, we said that there are different movie types. Now, there was action that we had. We discussed also adventure. We had also animation, biopics, comedies, drama, and epics. We also mentioned horror, we mentioned science fiction, and also we mentioned Western and war movies. Now all of these different genres as we have here. Now also we said the word genre, it means we have here film genre, and this is the phonetical way to write it. Now these were the topics that we can choose from for the writing part that we had. Now the essay that we had here, we can add to the descriptive types that we took, and also the personal essay. We have here an expository essay. Now you were explaining, you are exposing information about a specific type of genre that you are talking about. We moved from Unit 4, which was the world of TV. Now we just took the commercials with us to apply in our unit, which was to Do You Really Need It?, which was about commercials, about advertising in general. Now, one of the things that we did or talk about was, of course, we have here shopping. Shopping, we met Farah and Amal. Do you remember Amal? She was doing a lot of shopping, and Farah, she wasn't very happy with it. So we have here Farah, she was advising against something. Now, the phrases that Farah used, are you sure you really want to do that? I don't think that's a good idea. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I'm afraid you're going to regret it if you buy to another thing, for example. And we have here, you should think carefully before you spend more money. So these were phrases that we used if you want to advise against something. And also we had the part which is the real talk, and you can see the pictures that we have here. Now we have beat it, blow, broke, and max out, and you can just relate to the pictures that we have. Now the first one, beat it, means to leave quickly. We have blow. We have here, it's obvious from the picture we have here, waste money. And broke, from this guy here, he is out of money. Max out, to max out your card, which means to spend up to the limit. And here also we moved from the conversation part, which we had in Do You Really Need It? We moved to the reading part here. Now we had ads everywhere, and do you buy it? There was a lot of discussion about different types of things, and do you really need these things or not? This led us to the writing part that we have. Now the writing, we had a letter written to explain your point of view, or just to show your point of view towards the topic, which was using advertisements in schools. Do you remember when we wrote the letters? Now here we did a kind of comparison when we said that first in Unit 4 we had the expository, which means you are describing, or there is a kind of descriptive essay. And here we are doing another kind, which is the persuasive essay. You are trying to show your point of view here, and we can say in other words, personal arguments, considers different views. So this is what we had in our unit, which was Unit 5. And this here adds to more of our essays that we had. So we have number 1, a descriptive essay about people's characters or characteristics. Number 2, a descriptive essay about a person's life. Number 3, which is a personal essay which expresses your views. Number 4, an expository essay. And now in number 5, we have here a persuasive essay. Now here, after that, we finished our essay and moved on to the gender divide, which was Unit 6. Now Unit 6 also was a very interesting unit that talked about the differences between genders. And here we talked about different reactions in the conversation part. Now in the different reactions, we met these two guys here. Now we had here Faisal and, yes, Fahad. Do you remember when we said that they got lost and they went to a gas station and asked the gas attendant for help to give directions? So we learned the phrases that you can use when you're asking for directions or when you are giving directions. And we did a map, a complete map that we had to just give a direction from one place, or directions in general, from one place to another. Also, we had the real talk part here. Now, to know something like the back of my hand means that you know it very well. You can say that again is just a phrase to say that you agree on something. Over is used to emphasize a place or a location. It could say that I saw your book over there. For ages is an expression to say that something happened for a long time and you can just compare it to different ages of a person. Make a big deal about something is the same way to say that to make something small seem very important and give it more than its value. So these were the last of the real talk phrases that we took. Now, actually, the phrases that we have for the real talk, some of them we used them from before we even studied them in the book, and some are new and interesting, and I'm sure that you applied most of the words or the real talk within your conversations. Now, after the real talk part, we moved to the reading, which was, in what ways do you think men and women communicate differently? Now we had the discussion about what are the different things between men and women when we say that, how do they listen within a conversation, what do they like to talk about, why do they like to talk about these things, and so on. And this led us to the final essay that we had, which was the types of communication, and we focused on the verbal and non-verbal ways to communicate in our essay. And we were asked to write, next to the expository essay and the persuasive essay, we had the comparative essay, which we were finally asked to write. Now, the comparative means that, of course, I'm comparing between two types or two sides to explain how two subjects are either similar or different. And this is going to be added to the end of our types of essays that we wrote. So we have here the comparative essay. So in general, these are the basic topics or the basic ideas that we passed by through the units or throughout the units from 1 to 6. Concerning, we have here the conversation and the real talk, the reading topics in general, and the types of essays that we wrote about. And alhamdulillah, we did a great job within these things, and we have fantastic student works or student works in general that they did, and the writings, the essays, they were more than what was expected, and they were awesome. So this is something that we just discussed in general here. We are also going to go back and discuss, we have here the vocabulary that we learned throughout the units and the grammar as well. So till the next lesson, just go back and see what are the basic things that we studied within our lesson. So to the next lesson, inshallah, try to just revise what are the parts that we took here, and just go back and take a look. Here there's a good chance just to apply again and to use the phrases and the things that we have learned within your daily language.